Guys, welcome to the Fandom Portals podcast. My name is Aaron Davies, and today I am joined by a very special guest. His name is Drew, and he is a digital content creator. He's a podcast producer. He is the host of the to be coming out podcast, Why Do I Love This, and the host of the podcast Sequel Pitch, which you can find on all your favorite platforms. Drew, how are you going today? Thank you for joining me on Fandom Portals.
Mate, thank you for having me. It really is a pleasure to get to sit down and talk nerd stuff with people.
Yeah, no,
Very happy.
It's a very big passion area of mine, and I'm just pleased to be able to find people that are like-minded and can come on and have a chat about the things that we love. About the movie The Last Jedi, and in particular, you answered a Threads post that I put on that's asked what people would like to talk about on my podcast, and you wrote down in the application that you would like to come to the defense of The Last Jedi, and in particular, Luke Skywalker's character journey. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. But before we do, did you want to tell us a little bit about the documentary podcast series that you're working on? And then we'll dive into some questions about Star Wars.
Yeah, sure. So Why Do I Love This it spawned from Star Wars, actually. It began as a little project that I was working on with a guy that I work with in my freelance work. And thinking about why is it that some kids are Luke Skywalker kids and other kids are Han Solo kids, and what might be the differences in kind of philosophy or psychology, like philosophy for like a 10-year-old who likes Star Wars maybe is the wrong word, but what makes kids choose between those two when they do. Lots of brainstorming later. I came to this idea of looking into why, I need a better word for this, but why certain things become important, like deeply important and foundational for individual people. Season 1, it's starting out, episode 1 is about why I love Luke Skywalker, and it's me personally. The rest of the series, there's a lot of fictional characters in here, which is interesting in and of itself. I was hoping people would say, like, I love football, I love driving, I love animals. It's probably down to the nature of my social media connections. It's all just like, no, Superman, Batman.
Yeah, the algorithm sent you these kinds of requests.
I'm spending a lot of time, like, I'm very lucky. My wife is back at university training to be a nurse because she's a wonderful human being. And so she's got academic logins to loads of academic resources all over the internet. So I'm currently deep in the weeds reading through a whole bunch of academic papers about Luke Skywalker and Star Wars in general. And it's absolutely fantastic. I'm not saying the project is fantastic. It's still incoming, and I've never done a documentary before, and it's a lot harder than you think when you sit down and go, yeah, I'm just gonna make a thing, and that can't be that hard. It's fucking hard, but I'm really enjoying the process, and hopefully we'll have something interesting for people to listen to. With hopefully episode 1 will be out sometime in the next month or 6 weeks, depending on when my second child arrives. Because my wife has also been doing her second year of university whilst being heavily pregnant.
Superwoman.
A mentalist.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It does.
So yeah, that's the project.
Yeah, it does sound like a really interesting project, especially with it being driven by like psychological research, but also exploring those passion areas of lots of different people. And I think it's interesting that you said a lot of people are falling to those fictional characters as part of the thing that they're bringing to the table, as the thing that, as you mentioned, that they love. Speaking of the thing that you love, you mentioned Luke Skywalker. Have you found that more people are Luke Skywalker kids or Han Solo kids, or is it an equal mix of two? What's the findings so far?
Anecdotally, I always felt like way more people liked Han Solo than Luke.
I always thought that too.
And I think there's something to that. But then again, maybe it's like, who knows exactly how this comes together and what mystical evil algorithms are working within social media and my social circles. But the people that I have managed to properly speak to are far more identified now with Luke. And I wonder, part of my hypothesis, if that's not too wanky of a word, for the documentary, without kind of spoiling the whole thing, is that I think Luke's character, particularly with what's happened under Disney, actually makes him even more appealing as people grow up and become adults and experience more of life.
Yeah. I was going to say
It's fine.
The character of Luke Skywalker as well. I feel like, for me at least, when I was growing up, I was very much a Han Solo kid, and then as I grew up into being an adult, I very much more leaned towards Luke Skywalker as well. So that tracks.
Oh, no way!
Yeah. So I've moved towards the Luke Skywalker
Proof.
like fandom sort of side, and I think it does come from the fact that he is a more sort of nuanced and character that goes through an arc more so than Han Solo are, I believe so.
Yeah,
anyway,
Han is absolutely cooler. Like, if you were to put together like an objective side by side list, especially in the first couple of movies, Han has, to most people, the far cooler ship. He's got much better lines. He's way more charismatic. He's Harrison Ford, which helps. Like, he's Indiana Jones to all of us who didn't watch these movies until the 90s and later. He's also Indiana Jones, which makes a big difference. But yeah, he's kind of, Han has always felt like more of a cipher, and he gets the love story with Leia in it, and he is a good character and he's well performed. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of it has to just come down to personal preferences.
I feel like it does, yeah.
I love the Millennium Falcon is a cool spaceship design, but the X-Wing is, in my to me, in my opinion, the coolest spaceship design that's ever existed. And no matter how cool Han's blaster is, a lightsaber is cooler than a blaster.
Lightsabers are Star Wars, yeah. 100%. I can see that completely. And I think it also all starts with what you are drawn to the most in a character. There are some people that say, you are drawn to something that is very much like your own character, and there are also some people that say that you're drawn to characters that exhibit qualities that you yourself don't have. And I think that's an interesting perspective to go to with these two different characters of Han and Luke as well, and sort of where you sit with them and when you sit with them in your life as well. It's an interesting sort of topic to dive into. So can I ask you, Drew, your journey, let's say, with Luke Skywalker, how did that begin? How did you first meet this wonderful Jedi named Luke on Tatooine?
I couldn't say exactly how old I was. It would have been the early 90s. I expect I was 5 or 6. So that would be 1990. And my brother had the original, or got given the original trilogy on VHS. And he wasn't that fussed. He'd watch them occasionally. But then I was like, oh, this is just the best thing ever. I think, and this is something that I am trying to explore further as I'm deepening my journey doing all this research. I'm not sure whether I was particularly drawn to the character of Luke and his journey, or whether I was more drawn to the iconography. Because I remember if I picked up a stick, everything was a lightsaber from like the age of 5 for a very long time. The X-Wing, the imagery of an X-Wing fighter is burned into my mind. And I don't think, or I certainly didn't consciously go, I either see myself in Luke or I want to be like Luke. I have no recollection of having those feelings at all. But he embodied the things that I found the coolest about Star Wars. And so that's why I still gravitated way more towards Luke than Han or other characters. Also, fascinating thing that I have come across. So many kids say Darth Vader is their favorite character.
Oh yeah, that's coming up too.
Like, what's up with those people? I really want to dive into that.
Yeah,
I don't have enough. I had a sponsor for the project, and unfortunately, their marketing budget changed, and so I now don't have a budget, so it's all off my own back. And I was planning on hiring a bunch of therapists and actually talking to people and really trying to dig down into like what could there be about a child that makes them go, okay, yeah, there's these two heroes. There's the cool one. There's the idealist sort of atypical hero.
Yep.
What makes a kid go, no, Darth Vader's the best?
Yeah. Maybe it's the red lightsaber. Who knows?
It could literally be that simple.
But with the Darth Vader point that you were saying, do you think it might have anything, and this is off topic a little bit, but do you think it might have anything to do with the fact that you and I grew up in a time where we only had access to episodes 4, 5, 6, so we only knew Darth Vader as that man in black, dressed darkly, going for power, red lightsaber, cuts off Luke's hand, completely evil, great big shock when we find out that he's actually Luke's father. And now when people watch Star Wars, they see him as a child. They see Anakin as a child. They may relate to Anakin the same way I related to Luke now. They see him grow up through his teenage years. They see him go through that transition to the dark side, and then Darth Vader. Like maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but they have a different sort of access to Star Wars than what we do.
Yeah, there is definitely like people who grew up with Phantom Menace and onwards being the movies that got them into it do seem to have a much stronger connection to the character. And I think you've hit on something there. Although I was reading there was a paper. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if it's a paper or an article, but all referenced and researched, and like I got so much of the early academic work on Star Wars is just so obsessed with Freud and Oedipus complexes, which has been pretty like Freud was important in psychology, absolutely. Like wider knowledge of psychology wouldn't be where it is if Freud hadn't done what he did. But a lot of his ideas were fucking bollocks with with like one child as his proof for or all kids want to fuck their opposite gender parent. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot.
That's okay.
But even this paper from late 70s, early 80s was like a lot of children choose Darth Vader as their favorite character. And so I think in modern contexts, in modern contexts, were we asking this question of 20-year-olds at the moment, I think you would be entirely right. And if they said Vader, it would be because they've got this even deeper connection to the character and his journey. But there's, again, and like you said, maybe it's just the red lightsaber, maybe it is just the iconography of the character, but there is something alluring about the evil dude.
Yeah, the villain.
And I don't understand it.
I have been known to be drawn to a villain or two in my time, so I can't say I can judge those individuals. And Vader is very, very cool as a villain also. But in terms of
which villains have you been drawn to? I need to know.
Okay, so the villains that I've been drawn to, I'm a little bit ashamed to say it, but I kind of like Scar from The Lion King.
I was literally thinking that.
Yeah. It just I don't think it's because I agree with what he does, but he's just a very charismatic sort of villain, you know. Yeah. He's not your typical evil overlord. He's an intellectual kind of villain. So I think that's why I kind of liked him. Yeah, he's sneaky and he's suave and he's like annoyed and infuriated by his underlings, and he's just and he just flips and flops and he's just still on top. So he's appealing to me too. So I like that. But yeah, there's a few more as well, but we won't go into that now.
That's a good example.
Yeah. Now, in terms of how you feel about Luke Skywalker now, because you've obviously have a decent sort of history with him. Can you tell me now what you think about his character arc in its complete view? Because we've seen it start from his birth in the Revenge of the Sith, moving to A New Hope, and then coming to its conclusion in The Last Jedi, which has a very controversial opinion throughout the internet. It's probably one of the most contentiously argued points and the most divisive point in the Star Wars fandom is how Luke Skywalker was handled in The Last Jedi movie, Episode 8. Would you like to talk to us about how you feel his journey and his arc has gone in relation to how it ended in that last movie? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I like I was saying before, when I was a little kid, I think I was drawn more to Luke because of the things that he had that I thought were cool. And then as I got older and into my teens, and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith were coming out, and as someone who was really into Star Wars, you're going back and you're rewatching the original trilogy and looking for bits that link and being like, oh my god, that's I've forgotten all the characters' names now, but anyway. And that was when I started to appreciate Luke's journey in as a character in the original trilogy more, and seeing that change and seeing the wistfulness and the longing, and beginning to identify with themes like trusting your instincts. And in A New Hope, so much of what Ben Kenobi teaches him is, there is the Force, it's around you. It can partially guide your actions, but it does obey your commands. But then ultimately, when it comes down to it, the message is let go of everything. You know what to do. Your instincts are right. You can have faith that what you think is that doing this is the right thing and it's going to work. And then moving into Empire, and I just love Yoda on Dagobah. It just the reveal. What's funny is I have no recollection whatsoever of being like shocked that Darth Vader was Luke's father. I assume that I started watching Star Wars and one of my parents walked in during the first one and points at Vader when he's on screen at some point. He goes, "Oh, did you know that's Luke's dad?"
Yeah, so it was spoiled for you. You're not too sure.
Yeah, I guess. Just because I've seen all these modern social media videos of kids being shown that scene and they're like,
oh my God.
Yeah, and I don't remember that. But I do remember the feeling of like utter joy when Luke shows up on Dagobah and there's this wacky little Muppet like crawling and hitting R2 with a stick.
He was the perfect mix of like wise and funny. I loved him too,
Yeah, it absolutely perfect. Luke's journey of like even those little messages of that you can't judge a person by how you first perceive them, and thinking about how you present yourself, and Luke's impulsiveness causing problems, and he loses his hand because he doesn't do what he's told he should, etc., etc. And then you get into Return of the Jedi, and Luke's just flipping badass, and he's got the green lightsaber, and he's doing flips and fighting over the Sarlacc pit, and you have the best space battle in all of Star Wars at the end of that movie, and he's got the fight with Vader and the Emperor, and it's all emotion, and it's great. So that was when I became a real Luke stan, not a Jedi. I like Jedi's stan. That was when I was like, no, I'm a Luke Skywalker stan. And then you've got the 10 years from Revenge of the Sith until Episode 7 for that to just nicely bed in, and I become an adult and I go to university, and it's not as cool to like Star Wars. I still love it, but not watching it every day kind of thing. I wasn't watching it every day when I was 15 either, but there we go. And then the Christmas 2014, the trailer for Force Awakens comes out. I'm at the office, and like work stops at like 3/4 of the office, and everyone's just crowded around one computer watching that 1-minute teaser on repeat. Then it comes out, you don't see him for the entire flipping movie, and it ends with him stood there on the cliff, and I was like, right,
builds anticipation.
I was like, okay, well, Luke's something absolutely incredible is going to happen in the next movie. He's going to be the most powerful jet. I think there's something in Legends, in one of the Legends novels, which I've read shamefully few of, where he like pulls Star Destroyers out of the sky using the Force and crashes them into a planet, and it's like he's gonna have the green lightsaber, and he's gonna fight Kylo Ren, and it's gonna be amazing, and he's gonna be the most powerful Jedi ever. And then you get into the movie, and you see him, and Rey's there, and he chucks the lightsaber, and I was along with so many other people. And I hope that this is why my defenses of The Last Jedi now maybe hopefully will be given credence by people, because I was not happy. I was like,
Same as
oh,
me. Exactly the same.
yeah,
And I think it goes
a
back
lot of
to,
people.
yeah, to what you were saying before about how he is that extremely awesomely well liked character that goes through that arc. It goes from, farm boy on Tatooine all the way to in Return of the Jedi, when he showed up at Jabba's palace. I was literally like, everything's fine now, because he was that powerful, he was that much of a hero, and you were just like, I'm in safe hands. I can give my trust to Luke, and he's going to get Han out of this, and everything's going to be okay. They'll fly off in his spaceship
Yeah.
and happily ever after, because like he was that sort of character, he was that sort of hero. And when it came to the end of Return of the Jedi, everybody kind of had him on that pedestal, and they had that expectation of, as you said, he's like that powerful Jedi. But I think everybody kind of forgot that he was always, and even at that moment, he was always still that flawed sort of character. And it was exceptionally highlighted when he's obviously he's exiled himself, and through The Force Awakens, we're talked to about how he has exiled himself. And it's almost, I was in disbelief. I was like, why wouldn't he come back to help everybody? So that sort of questions is something that I wanted answered. And then when we do see him for the first time, as you said, and he tosses that lightsaber, I completely agree. I was in the same boat as you. Absolutely shocked. And for the rest of that movie, I think I was like, what is going on here? But yeah, go ahead. And then like towards the end of that film, how did your feelings go towards Luke?
So, yeah, my first watch of The Last Jedi all the way through, I think I remember coming out of, because obviously I went to the midnight screening, of course.
Yep.
And I came out and was like, that's the best looking Star Wars film. And it still is. Like, it's beautiful to look at. But I was like, I really don't know how I feel about it. Like, what
I think that
Luke didn't.
Yep, same as a lot of people. They walked out a little bit confused.
Yeah. And I appreciate. Actually, no. I don't think I did. That first watch, he didn't. I was. This is the perfect encapsulation of it for me. Is that I was fully on Poe's side through that movie. Like, Poe's like, these people who are in charge, they're not listening to us. We know what's right. We've got to go and do the thing that people in movies always do, who are the heroes in the movie, and they go rogue and they fix the problem and they sort it out and they make everything better. And I was like, yeah, fuck Admiral Holdo for not telling him. Why wouldn't she just tell him the plan?
Yeah.
And then none of that would have happened. They would all have survived if she'd told him the plan. That I had all those thoughts. Luke never, you only saw the green lightsaber in flashback, and that hurt me to my soul. And just so much of it was weird. I didn't like the casino planet, because there was this ticking clock with the fuel, but they do have time to stand on a balcony and look out over the view, and I didn't like that.
Yep.
And it felt a bit silly. You get to the end, and Luke has his death scene after facing down Kylo Ren. And again, the visuals of Luke facing down Kylo Ren, I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big, involved, acrobatic, powerful fight. It was a samurai duel, and Luke dodges everything, and then he's not even there. And then he dies, and he dies looking out over a twin sunset. And I got emotional at that moment. It still hit me. But yeah, I wasn't frothingly angry. The thing is, I can understand why a lot of people were.
Yeah.
I really can. If were I in a worse place emotionally for whatever reason when I saw that movie, or if I was a slightly different person, not a worse person, but if I were a slightly different person from who I am, I might have been like, this movie ruined everything. It destroyed the character. It did all of the... No, absolutely not. And so it wasn't until I went back to see it in the cinema again and came round to it a bit more, but just a bit. And I was like, okay, right. I realized I went to this movie expecting certain things of Luke specifically. Like the other characters do, whatever, I don't care. There are some plot hole things that I'm not a huge fan of, but Luke was my problem. And I actively had to sit myself down and go, okay, what I wanted to see from my beloved character didn't happen. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I just have to I have to now, instead of spending the whole film whenever Luke's on screen being annoyed that he's not doing what I wanted, I need to actually pay attention to what he is doing and why, and really process that and see what I think about it. And that is what changed my feelings about The Last Jedi and made me made my love for the character of Luke just explode to an entirely new level, which sounds really hyperbolic and wanky. I'm sorry, but
No, that's okay. I completely understand and agree, because I was exactly the same way watching it. And I think a lot of people were, because, this character had been off our screens for 40 or something years. And I think everybody had indulged themselves in some of the legend stories, or at least some of the fan theories after
yes.
The Force Awakened, and that expectation hit everybody. And because it's such a beloved character, a well-known character, and like the face of a franchise character, everybody does expect so much of Luke Skywalker. And when he comes and he doesn't meet those expectations, it's immediately just that knee-jerk reaction of, this sucks. And, I can understand and attest to that, but I think going back and looking at that character, as you said, through the perspective and the lens of what is actually happening here, how is this character growing, or what is this character going through and his feelings, I think that's the way to approach this. Because as I said to you before we started rolling, the way that this movie actually handled Luke Skywalker is probably one of my favorite things about this movie. Obviously, it does have its downfalls and its flaws, but I think the way that they handled Luke Skywalker in this is very much in kin, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's in alignment with how his character was in the previous three films. Yeah, because, he's always been that impulsive and emotional kind of Jedi. He's not that perfect stoic, taken from a young age and indoctrinated into the Jedi. He's always been that emotional, sort of does anything for his friends kind of Jedi, to the point where he sees Ben Kenobi slain by Darth Vader. They've just gone in this massive stealth mission through the Death Star, and he immediately exclaims, no, reveals their position, emotional outburst, can't control it, starts blasting. Again, in Empire, he leaves Dagobah, doesn't finish his training, goes and gets his hand cut off. He's always made these impulsive and emotional decisions. And I'm wondering why the fandom was surprised when they saw him just about to cut down and slay Kylo Ren in that sort of moment again, where he had that impulsive episode. And Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker, even said, as character Luke Skywalker, he said, I had a moment of disbelief and that's all it was, but I was caught in that moment by Ben Solo, and then all I had left was shame. So it's true to his character all the way through. He had that moment of shame, he had that moment of impulsivity, but he drew it back. It was just too late at that time. And in the way that he did that, he self-fulfilled that prophecy that he was fearing in the first place. And I think that's a really brilliant way to portray that character in the new form that he's in. And then he goes into his exile as well.
Because even in Return of the Jedi, where he is, if we feel like he's at the height of his powers and he's done all of his training with Yoda and he's a Jedi now, like you get to the end of the movie and he's stood next to the Emperor and the Emperor's like, right, all your friends are going to die. The only way you stop this is if you kill me. And if you kill me, you will turn to the dark side and I've won.
Yep.
Luke then just grabs his fucking lightsaber and tries to cut
He tries to do it.
Vader stops him.
Yep.
And so I completely agree. Absolutely, totally agree. It did fit the character. He's not perfect. We had 30, 40 years of Legends books where he was more perfect in a lot of ways, to have that idea of who the character would be when he came back. And it is such a spectacular fall from grace from what we as the audience were expecting from that character. But then also there's the beauty of that being Rey's journey with it too.
Yeah.
And Rey shows up and like, this dude is the shit.
Yeah.
He's the best.
I've heard stories about him. He's the legend. Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to save the galaxy. He is going to stand up, kill all the First Order, and everything's going to be fine. And then she has the same reaction as us, as like, huh? What? What are you doing? What are you doing to that seal?
Yeah.
Oh,
why are you drinking that?
Yeah.
It's like even scene of disgust on her face when she was like, I've seen what you do. You're not busy. You can come and help.
Yeah.
No, I think that part where Rey was introduced is very much like she's the audience's character in that moment. Like she is living through that disappointment as we are. And I think that, and you know what, it probably evoked the right feeling from the audience. Like the audiences should have felt disappointed in Luke, and the director, Ryan Johnson, he probably wanted that sort of disappointment and wanted to tell the story that not all Star Wars fans expected, but also probably the most true story to Luke's character, because that's amazing pressure as a director and a writer to go into. And I think he at least pulled that part of the story off quite well.
There is also, I really feel for Ryan Johnson. And I think he's made an incredible movie and did an amazing job with so much of it. But now that in retrospect, we know that Disney didn't have a through line plan.
Yeah.
And that J.J. Abrams was like, right, I'm doing my mystery box thing, and Luke is the mystery box. And he had the luxury of going, Luke's exiled himself. Why? Who fucking cares? I don't know.
That's for somebody else to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Ryan Johnson then has to be like, okay, why?
Yeah.
Why has Luke not been helping?
To be pivotal enough, it had to be big enough for Luke, for the audience to believe that Luke would have exiled himself and not gone back.
Yeah.
And that's incredible pressure. Like, because that whole first movie of the Force Awakens, that was a build. It was a build and a build and a build and a build to the point where we finally see, and I couldn't imagine getting throwing the script paper at that point and go finish it. Like, what do you do? You know? It's like, now what happens? Yeah. Go on, Ryan. Try.
Yeah. And I don't doubt that there would be other ways that you could do it. Like he found the source of the dark side, and he's there because only by him being there using all his powers can he contain it. Or some other, like, there's plenty of other things that could have happened. Fine. But the solution that Ryan Johnson came up with, I think, was great. Absolutely great as far as Luke's character goes. I have issues with some of the tone and some of the like performance notes, like Daisy Ridley being there and being sort of perplexed, and like Daisy Ridley's a good actress. She does a good job. You see real emotion coming through, and she can perform highly emotive scenes really well. And so my assumption is she was directed to just be a bit frustrated with Luke, and like she's just a bit like she's impatient, and she's like, oh, come on, aren't you going to train me? Oh, I'm just going to follow him around again. And actually, I think that she should have been more angry. I think that I think that it might have helped the tone of the film. It might have helped the audience to reconcile their anger and confusion more if she as a character was even more like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? There are other performance notes for the movie itself. Poe Dameron waiting on hold for Hux right at the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
Is just a scooch over the line.
Yeah.
Silly.
I've heard that as being described as starting the movie off with a your mum joke. Because he's just like, exactly.
And in isolation, I'm like, that's a funny scene for a space movie for kids. Donald Gleason performs that bit really well when he's like, "Can he hear me?"
Yeah,
he can. And all those notes work. The timing works. The idea that he is doing it to distract them so that he can get in and clear the surface cannons off of the dreadnought. That all kind of makes sense. But there's just the execution of it. I wonder if they were like, things are going to get pretty heavy in this movie later on. Let's start it off and be as fun as possible. But then it's like, okay, yeah, super fun, super fun. Oh my God, all the bombers have died. Oh my God, this girl who was terrified for her life just crashed and burned in a fiery death. Jesus.
Yeah. So, 0 to 10 in the space of that. Yeah. I do like how Poe's scene there where he's with Domhnall Gleeson, General Hux, it is then juxtaposed with the scene of him just absolutely cutting sick across that dreadnought space and just that's a beautiful scene too. Like you said before, it's a very beautiful movie, like Star Wars wise. Him taking out those defensive cannons solo, might I add. He's probably like top 3 best pilots in the entire Star Wars canon, and you see it on display there. It's like there's moments like that through this movie as well, but it is peppered with, like you said, the scene prior where it's just a little bit too much tongue-in-cheek. The character of General Hux is like, how is this guy the leader of the Imperial force? That little bit of disbelief. And then my biggest thing with The Last Jedi, and it is the way that they handled some of the characters that they established for this new sequel franchise. Because I think that, as we said, they did do quite well with Luke's sort of journey, even though it wasn't received that way to start with. But, for example, most notably the character of Finn, I think his character throughout the movie just didn't get the justice that he kind of deserved, because I feel like The Force Awakens kind of led him up to feel like he was going to be that lightsaber-wielding, Force-sensitive Jedi. Did you want to discuss your thoughts on how Finn's character was treated throughout the Last Jedi movie? What were your thoughts?
I see what I found. I never ever picked up on the fact that they might have been setting him up to be Force-sensitive. And after The Rise of Skywalker, and again, when I first watched the film, totally oblivious. Every time he was like, Ray, I wanted to tell you something. I was like, is he going to say he loves her?
Yeah.
Fuck off. No.
Yep.
And I think I was just having, like, you want to get me onto a Star Wars film I really don't like.
No,
I think I was so one. Yeah, I was so primed to assume that they were doing the stupidest fucking thing that they could in that movie, that I still was like, when someone says, obviously he's going to say that he can use that he's Force sensitive, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh yeah, of course, I'm such an idiot. But at the time, didn't get it at all. And so I would agree, he definitely doesn't get that much. He's just kind of Poe Dameron's proxy. That he and Poe are kind of the same character. Really.
Yeah,
he's got a little bit of the he's a coward and he wants to run away and he wants to save Rey.
Yep.
Who he's known for like 3 days.
Yeah,
and so I almost think it would be better if he was running away, because he was
the start of that movie.
Just like, wait, I can save Rey as well. But they play it like it's all about saving Rey, and that's what matters to him most. When it would play better if he was really being cowardly and being like, no, I'm not going to die here. I don't want to die here.
I was going to say, I think it would also be really, really awesome if, because he was an ex-stormtrooper, I think it would be good if he was going to then go back and free or liberate or try and help other stormtroopers in the same sort of vein as himself. Like, that would have been a better way to develop his character, you know?
Yeah. And there's all of the, I don't think it's conjecture anymore. As far as I know, the script for Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 that has done the rounds is the real thing. And he would have done that. He would have gone back in and convinced a whole shed load of stormtroopers to rebel against the First Order, and that would have been amazing. And that was a dropped ball. But I think that he's a very functional character within the story. Who has the journey of, or sometimes I don't know best.
Yes. I need to be humbled.
Yeah, I need to, I have to stop being so reckless. I have to trust that if someone who is a higher rank than me says they have a plan and they're not going to tell me, and so getting on to the thing of Holdo not telling him the plan, as far as she is concerned, in the first watch, you're on Poe's side, like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
She's such an idiot. And then I went back and I was like, okay, hang on, imagine you're a vice admiral. This dude, he's a great pilot, but he just got a whole bunch of people killed. Your entire bomber fleet has been destroyed, and one of your oldest friends' final acts in command was to demote him. Like, you've got other things in your mind.
Yep.
I don't have time to deal with you, you idiot. Piss off. You'll find out when you need to know. And Poe learns that journey, and Finn is just kind of an accessory to learning that journey. And he does get the nice moment at the end where he goes from the polar opposite of running away to escape this whole situation and being a coward to the ultimate brave thing of trying to sacrifice himself to save everyone.
Yes.
And Rose stopping him. And that's an interesting, those are two cool ends of an arc to go from one to the other of, but the journey in between could have been a bit better executed.
Yep. I agree. Do you think Finn's arc and Finn's story would have been better and more well received if he actually followed through with that destruction of the Death Star mini weapon? If that was where it ended for him?
Maybe. That's really hard to say, but on a kind of business level, it wouldn't have been a good look for Disney for them to be like, hey guys, we've got a main character who's black and he's
Yep.
a main character, and then he dies.
That's true.
I wonder if there was a version of it where that happened, and then maybe someone was like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
But I think I really love the sentiment of Rose saving him, and that the sentiment of we're not going to win by fighting what we hate, we win by saving what we love.
That's a good quote.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. I just got goosebumps saying those words, because conceptually that's a really powerful thing that I think, like, being someone who is further over on the left of politics and who is very angry at the UK Conservative government and lots of things that have happened and continue to happen in this country, there is so much hate, and it often isn't productive to hate. Hate can be a powerful motivating force, there's no doubt about that. Framing conversations in, no, we're not trying to destroy that necessarily, we are trying to save this, is wonderful. The fact that he didn't die, at the very least, they came up with a good way to get out of that. Any political is the wrong word, but any concerns at potential backlash or accusations of callousness with an African American, well, no, he's not African American, he's English, with a black character being killed off, however excellent and emotional that would be for the story, if all of that could be put to the side, that it would have worked. It would have been a good way for that character's journey to go. Like, if Finn rebelling against the First Order so much was part of the legend, so it wasn't just Luke standing up to everyone and that message getting around the galaxy, it was, this guy was a stormtrooper and he sacrificed himself to save the rebellion, as well as Luke Skywalker showed up, then that could have been really cool too.
Impactful, I think. But you know what, you've made me see it from a different perspective today as well. The rescuing of Finn by Rose, I always saw it as a point of annoyance, because I did see it in that fashion that you just mentioned, where that would have, him uprising against the First Order and giving him that last fuck you pretty much, would be a really great end to his character. But also, fighting for the things that you love, seeing Rose come through to rescue him and impacting that sort of powerful that powerful sort of quote to spur on the rest of the series, and then accentuated by then Luke coming back and fulfilling his arc once again through his sacrifice for the people that he loved, which is completely in character for Luke. It kind of does work, and it ties it off pretty well.
But do you think that, and this is a really, really subjective question to ask anyone, how do you feel about the discussion around, is it a failing of the film that there are so many ways to look at the bits of this film that that really piss people off.
Yeah.
There are ways you can view it that make it make sense, and you have conversations with people, you view it a couple of times, and you are able to change your mind. Is it a failing on the filmmaker's part that intent, if those were the intentions, which I presume that they were, like Rian Johnson, he's done Knives Out and Glass Onion. He knows what he's doing with the story and scripts. So I presume that was his intention. Was he being too subtle for his own good? And is that a failing? Or is it a good thing to make the audience have to work through their own emotions before they can take the film as what it is?
I think that's a really good question, because on the one hand, with this kind of franchise, you do want a movie that's cohesive, because there are a lot of hearts involved, a lot of history involved, a lot of anger if you get it wrong. And then on the other hand, I'm a person who watches movies who does like to think, and I do like to be surprised, and I do like to have the thing happen that I did not expect. And I think Rian Johnson definitely sort of went into that vein. And I think he also kind of had the mentality of not appeasing or not attending to the Star Wars fanboys or the Star Wars fandom in the way that, just because you think this is going to happen and this is your expectation, this is your fan theory, I'm not going to do that, because, then I'm just appeasing fans with the movie that I'm making. And, I will say that kind of did happen in the following movie, the episode 9, that did happen. And, we all can see what that resulted in. So I think, to answer your question, I think it is a perfectly good way to make a film to leave your audience sort of questioning and give them the benefit of, and I've said it before in episodes previous, don't believe that your audience is an idiot. Let them sort of put the things together themselves. Allow for a rewatch. Some movies you can't discuss like we're discussing this now. There are points to talk about. You can either go in and say, this is a great movie, or you can go in and say, this is a bad movie. But the points of discussion is kind of what makes this piece of art form and film as an art form great. Should he have done that with a Star Wars movie? Maybe not,
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I think you've answered that question very well, because I'm still undecided on it, so I'll just steal your answer.
No, that's you can claim it as your. No, that's perfectly fine. I think that like the franchise in itself, as we've said, there are a lot of things we enjoy about this movie. There are some things that we don't enjoy about this movie, and it provides a really good sort of conversation beat. This interview, guys, to the listeners, has been with Drew Toynbee. Did I say that right?
You did.
Yep,
well done.
Wonderful. And if you want to find him on socials, he's available on Threads and Twitter at Drew Toynbee. And you can also see his website at www.drewtoynbee.com. It says as well, and you've told me as well.
Maybe don't go to the website, though, because I need to update it.
Okay, don't go to the website unless this airs and you're listening to it 2 years in the future, in which case you definitely would have done that. Yeah. It does say as well that you've been looking at expanding your repertoire or your portfolio of audiobook and voice acting projects. So do you want to give a shout out to some of the things that you might have been on so that people can check you out if they'd like to and support your journey?
Yeah, sure. There's the only audiobook that is currently available for purchase is the audiobook that is available for purchase currently is called Elysium Falls, and it is book 1 of Loop Keeper. And it is a genre which I hadn't heard of, and I now find really fascinating, which is literary RPG.
Nice.
And it's very niche, and it's effectively narrative stories. It's not choose your own adventure narrative stories, but where the systems of tabletop role-playing games are built into the narrative. And so this guy, the main character it's called Loop Keeper. It says on the cover, a time loop lit RPG adventure. So he gets stuck in a time loop and has to go through and effectively level up and gain new skills. And it was really good fun. And I'm in the process of recording book 2. But if that sounds like it might be fun, if you fancy trying it out and you fancy giving some reviews on Audible with 5 stars for the performance, because a couple of people put like 2 and 3 stars and said they didn't like it, and that made me sad.
Bugger them. You know,
said I was great.
No, that's awesome. Definitely go and check out the audiobook from Drew, guys. And when you launch your documentary series called Why Do I Love This, we here at Fandom Portals will post out a link to that as well, and a social media post in support of you, Drew, because it sounds like a really awesome passion project of yours. Sounds like an interesting one too, and I'll definitely be a listener of that one also. If you've loved what you've heard from Drew as well, Sequel Pitch is the podcast where you can hear him on also. So thank you so much for joining me, Drew. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to have you on the podcast again.
Thank you. And yeah, if you have a thing, if you've got a thing that you love, have a think, let me know, and I'll absolutely fit the thing you love into season 1. Why not? Season 1 can be as long as I want now.
Absolutely.
I don't have a sponsor.
It does.
I can put as many people in as I want.
Absolutely. And, I'll try and make it something other than a character or a TV show. But, if that's the theme you're going to, I've got plenty to go through as well. So yeah, I'd love to guest.
Whatever it is, mate, that would be a real pleasure.
Very good. All right. Thanks for joining me. And we'll catch you guys later. And that'll be it. Stop. Bye.